And what this bike is really known for is the torque on that motor. I'm just going to roll it on here. Oh yeah.
Hi, and welcome to this episode of John's Motorcycle Rescue and Review. Today I am once again with Yamaha's 1980 XS1100 Special. This bike is super neat. It's only got 5,576 miles on it. So I have actually, between the first episode, the introductory video, and this video, I've put about 30 miles on this bike. But before I did, I had to really go through it, and when I purchased the bike, it was non-functional. It would not go out on the road, and that was because the brakes, both front and back, were seized up. And so I had to rebuild the master cylinder in the front. I had to rebuild the master cylinder in the rear. I also had to rebuild the brake calipers front and rear on this bike just to get it so where I could actually drive it out on the road. Now, Yamaha has an interesting feature on the front brakes. The calipers themselves don't slide back and forth as the piston actuates. They actually rotate. So it's a little bit different than other motorcycles I've worked on. Truth be told, even when I drove this bike out on the road, I'm having a little bit of shimmy in the front end, and so I don't know if I'm going to have to buy new rotors for this or if I can get these to function properly. The more I use them, the better they get. And so, again, I'm not sure what the issue was. Maybe with the calipers seizing up, they may have warped the rotors and overheated the rotors and caused them to kind of flex a little bit and miss shape. So, we'll see. That's an issue that's in process. The motor seems to be running really good. This bike pulls really, really hard. When this bike was introduced in 1978, the XS1100 was the fastest production motorcycle to date. And this bike really, you can see that when you ride this bike.
And we'll just roll that on. Oh yeah.
It's just a beast. It's got a beast of a motor. But it seems to run okay, it seems to shift okay. I also serviced the motor. I did a oil and filter change. I also serviced the transmission, so you have the kind of the transfer case here that gets the gear oil and the transfer case in the rear. So once I had heated the bike up, I drained the oil out of here and the rear and the engine, and replaced all my oil, all my crush washers, my oil filter, the O-ring, and so that's been completely serviced. I checked the air filter, that looks good. Drivability wise, I do have a bit of a stumble right around 3,000 RPM. It seems to idle fine, but when I get to about 3,000 RPM, if I let off the gas and kind of get back in it, it has a little bit of a stumble, and then it picks up nicely. And then once it's above that, above about 50 miles an hour in top gear, it pulls very, very cleanly and very smoothly. I have a feeling that I've got maybe a little bit of dirt in one of the carburetors, or a speck of rust or something that might be causing that, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'm going to continue to drive the bike and continue to monitor that. Sometimes when a bike hasn't been ridden in years and years, the longer you ride it, the better it runs. So that may be the case. I'd like to potentially this afternoon take this bike out again for another shakedown run and probably put another 30-40 miles on it. When I came back from my last run, about 30 miles, I left the bike running and I checked my charging system. The charging system is charging at 14 volts at idle, and when I get on the gas and rev it up to about 4,000 RPM, it goes up to 14.5 volts. So that is perfect. That's exactly where I want this charging system to be. The horns work fine, all my lights and turn signals work fine. Another thing I did while I had this bike up on the lift is I pulled the front steering bearings apart, and I cleaned and re-lubricated and cleaned the races. These are already tapered roller bearings, which is good, but I cleaned everything, re-lubricated everything, and retorqued the steering stem bearings, and so now the bike handles a lot better than it did the first time I took it out. I refinished and repainted my front master cylinder, the black part down here. When I took this apart, it had been leaking some brake fluid that had corroded some of the paint, and you might as well do it while you're in there. It doesn't get any easier than when you have everything apart. All right, once I get this bike just a little bit more dialed in, I'm going to be doing a review on this bike, and then I'm also going to be doing some comparison videos. I will be doing a comparison, a back-to-back comparison between all of the 1980s muscle cruisers. So that's Suzuki's GS1100L, that's Honda's CB900 Custom, and that's Kawasaki's, I've got a CSR 1000. I'm also working on a 1978 KZ1000 LTD. I may even do some back-to-back comparos there. All right, that wraps up this project update video on the 1980 XS1100. And stay tuned for more ride videos of this bike and updates, and I'll keep you informed on kind of what I did to sort out those few issues. Again, really the main two issues I have, I've got a little bit of a stumble around 3,000 RPM, and I've got some shimmy in my front end under braking. So I'm still not happy 100% with the braking in the front, and I do want to dial in the engine a little bit more before I do comparison. I hope you found this video entertaining and informative, and until next time, enjoy the ride.